We're with David Shapiro. David Shapiro is a criminal defense attorney in San Diego, California. He's agreed to answer some questions related to drug crimes. With that said, David, let's go into the first question. My son is facing some drug charges. I'm in the process of looking for an attorney. What are the questions I should be asking?
Well, the first question you want to be asking is to make sure that the attorney you're consulting with, in fact, does criminal defense. There's a lot of attorneys out there that think that they could do criminal defense just because you could be solo practice, you could basically be unemployed and pick up a criminal defense case and think you're a criminal defense attorney. But you need someone who knows what they're doing. So the first step is you want someone who has criminal law experience, preferably someone who handles a large majority of their practice, if not their entire practice, being criminal defense. You want someone ideally who is familiar or will associate with attorneys or staff members who are familiar with that courthouse where the case will be heard. And you want an attorney who has a good reputation within that courthouse, who's going to or has earned the respect of the prosecutors and the judges throughout the time and will be taken seriously. And you want an attorney who has experience at every aspect of that type of case, from the beginning of those cases, preliminary hearings if it's a felony charge, all the way to jury trial experience if that's the route and the direction the case ultimately goes. And you also want someone who's experienced, not necessarily in how many years they're experienced, because that could be deceiving sometimes, but you want to hire someone who's handled a high volume number of those types of cases. I've been practicing just about 8 years at this point in time, actually just under 8 years, 7.5 years or so, and I can tell you I've done more drug cases and more cases than a lot of attorneys who are criminal defense attorneys who've been practicing 15, 20 years. So you want to ask that attorney, hey, how many times have you gone to court on these types of cases? How many times have you handled similar types of cases like these in your career?
Okay. Next question is fairly specific. I have a misdemeanor drug violation. Is this something you would take on, or is it too small? And if you would take it on, what would you charge?
If a misdemeanor of a drug violation is too small, that means I'm too big, and I don't think I'm there at this stage in the game. Yeah, I definitely would take on a misdemeanor drug case. How much I charge depends on a lot of factors. It depends on what, if any, prior criminal history you have, where the case location is, what type of drug we're dealing with, or what stage of the case we're at. As the case started, am I coming in relieving another attorney? And how I feel we'll be working together. If I think it's going to be a headache, if I think that you have unrealistic expectations in the case, I might charge a little bit more because I think it'll require more time. It all depends. There's no real set fee, so to speak. It's my office, so I could ultimately authorize taking some misdemeanor cases for $1,500 if I wanted to, and I could quote fees of $5,000 for misdemeanor cases. It all depends. So all those factors go into what I would do. Sometimes misdemeanor cases, the ceiling is low, meaning that there's not a lot of risk to fight on, and the worst you're looking at would be 364 days in jail now. A lot of times a lot less, if any, jail time being a realistic alternative. But there's no case too small. It's just a matter of whether or not it's the right fit between potential client and my office most times, particularly as it relates to low-end drug misdemeanors.
Okay, the next question, well, I think it's a little duplicative, so we're going to skip it. It was, if I hire you, what would it cost? But I think you pretty much covered that in the last question. Let's go to the next question. Do you have experience, this is another specific one, do you have experience in heavy cocaine cases?
By heavy cocaine, I'm assuming we're meaning a lot of cocaine. Yes, I do.
That was the only thing posted. Okay.
At both the federal and state level. Here in San Diego, being a border-crossing city, county, town, 1.5 million people qualifies as a town, but we deal with a lot of border-crossing things, whether it's at Otay Mesa or whether it's at San Ysidro, from a federal and both a state case. So yes, from federal, someone comes over with 15 kilograms of cocaine, 30 kilograms of cocaine in their car, they get stopped at the border, they get arrested, they go to federal court. If it's a state case, sometimes it could be at the border. A lot of times agents may either directly or indirectly let the people cross with the drugs and to see where they go. And sometimes it turns into a state case. Up on Interstate 5 where San Diego becomes Orange County, a lot of times that's the main route. The 15 from San Diego through Orange County into the Inland Empire is the main drug route, with the drugs primarily originating, cocaine primarily originating from Mexico by way of South America. So yes, at every level, and state court, federal court, preliminary hearings, readiness conferences, settling cases, fighting cases, sentencings on heavy-duty drug cases. Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. And this another specific one. My son has been charged with ecstasy, intent to distribute. I really don't know anything about this process. What is my first step?
Well, similar to any type of drug case, you want to do some research on the potential attorneys you're looking to hire. You want to look at for all the prior reasons that I discussed. What you're looking for in an attorney. You want to see that attorney's reputation. If they have good reviews, how many reviews they have. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. Sometimes people can get a little creative with phantom reviews. People who've been practicing for 4 or 5 months or 6 months have 60 reviews, and yet they only had 20 clients. So, but as far as transportation or possession or sale of MDMA, ecstasy, or any drug for that matter, you need to know that Prop 47 in California did not affect that. It affected simple possession, so transportation, possession for sale or sale of any drug, anywhere from marijuana all the way to something like ecstasy, would be a felony. It would be a non-reducible felony charge, so it would be a felony offense no matter what. If your child would be convicted of that, there's some serious consequences and possible jail time, possible prison, which would be local prison time, in the event your child would be convicted of that, and a lifelong stigma of a felony, a non-reducible felony conviction. When I say non-reducible, I mean it stays a felony. It's not able to be reduced to a misdemeanor, like so many simple possession drug cases are. In fact, all are after Prop 47, unless you have a really, really terrible prior criminal history. So, you want to go through your steps in hiring an attorney. You want to hire an attorney who I think is going to be patient enough to deal with the situation of dealing with the family and dealing with a younger accused person in the criminal court system, who has the patience and the understanding, more equally as importantly, to explain you through that process and walk you guys through that process to make sure you, and more importantly your child, knows at each step in the way what's going to happen, what's a realistic alternative, because it's scary no matter what for anyone who gets arrested and has to navigate their way through the criminal justice system, but particularly for someone young, particularly someone who's not been in trouble before, and particularly someone like in your case where your child's facing a non-reducible serious felony charge.
Okay. All right. Well, that was all the questions we had. If you have any additional questions for David, all you have to do is post them in the comments section below. He's agreed to get back to you. Usually he can get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. David, thanks again for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.